Welcome back, audience. And here we are with another message. Hope you're doing good. Uh, I'm just gonna be making some of these videos, not as much as I did lately, because I'm engaging in other projects and it's just not gonna be any time. And honestly, I almost explained everything. I mean, if you can understand that point in the circle and the basics of the alchemy, everything else you're gonna figure it out. Um, and I mean, well, I just want to briefly mention like what is the real alchemical process and how to really begin playing this game of life at the level of the soul. And like it is actually balancing the four elements into the fifth element, as they say, right? Which is not a fifth element; is a combination of them all, and it's it's this flux state of consciousness that is original. And you kind of put them back together. All these, there's too much earth to balance it out with fire and burning wood. I'm trying to say like it's an internal process, but it's not. It's nothing fancy. I can explain to you what it is. Like what is earth, what is fire, what is water, and what is air. If you look at the toroidal energy field, and you have as a center of it, and if you have the energy coiling up from the center like this in an expansive way, that's air. If it goes into the contracting way, that's fire. And so you're going to have this type of triangle, that's fire, and that's uh, in this form, that would be air. And the opposite at the bottom would be spiraling in an expansive way, water, spiraling into the contractive way, earth, hard, you know. You see what I'm trying to say? It's like hard, soft, wet, hot, cold, and then hard and soft. I guess those are two qualities. But it's just the motion of the primordial spark. You see, everything is, as somebody said, is this torus field. Your consciousness is a holographic toroidal field. And at the soul level, this is how it works. And the game is to balance it all out. And in your experience in life, it comes out as states of consciousness. And in your soul, too much water, it will feel like you feel like being poisoned, malaise. Too much fire, emotional pain. Too much earth, pressure. Too much air, confusion. Okay? It all happens and in the heart. Those balances then, uh, once they are alchemized, and like I said before, to alchemize these balances is just like your attention and awareness, nothing else. And there's a certain type of tuning that you kind of have to figure out by yourself, of what kind of focus, what kind of between attention and awareness, that specific state that will allow you to bring it back to the coherent state. This is not something. This is going to be measured, by the way. The back of your head, in the front, eh, these sometimes called delta, alpha, and stuff like that. But it really it's not like that. There could be one state over here, another over here, and that's exactly what you will find in a coherent state. This you may find gamma in the front and theta in the back, and that would be a lucid dreaming state, which is a very coherent state and very liberated state, because I mean you experience everything you want and the moment's notice, and the immersion is so deep and enjoyment is so deep. That is being in that highly coherent state. Nothing that fancy. Okay, but the point of it all is dump all the knowledge, and you see it in yourself. You feel it in yourself. The one thing that you will also realize that, oh, it is type of from the center, like the more coherent and a deeper level I have, the more coherent is the lower frequency, which means you're going to have to balance it out with the high frequency. And the more coherent is a high frequency, which means you're going to have to balance it out with the low frequency. Once you get to that state, from these spiraling energies, you move into the state where there's like that neutron star, right? There's the black hole and then just two beams of light. Why are they like that? Because they're coherent and they completely organized and both levels. They up and down. The up being the spirit world, the down being sensational. Again, simplifying. There's nothing fancy. It's not outside. It's not like, oh, it's like another concept. No, it's your life. This is how you experience reality. There's going to be sensations, which is your physical reality, and there's also going to be feelings, which is your spiritual reality. Right? And when your sensations are deeply or equally connected with the feelings, it experiences that you are sensing something with your heart. Like you can look at something and it's a flower, and you can look at it, it's like, okay, it's a flower. You can see the shape, it's like, okay, boring. Or if you look at it deeply with your heart, that sensation is going to be immensely enjoyable. Okay, and that would mean that that beam that goes into this sensation world and the beam that goes in the feeling world are kind of balanced it out, and that is a state of the coherence, and that naturally arises upon placing your attention and finding the point between attention and awareness on that specific negative state that you may call pain, pressure, poison, and confusion. That's it. As you can see, there's nothing to do with rising the Kundalini from the bottom up. Uh, in the contrast of what I'm teaching, this is not alchemy. That is playing with the fire, so to speak, and that is really the dark path, because you are poking the you're poking the stick at that snake, and if you think that you're gonna be able to control that energy, uh, you'll have another thing coming for you, and you're not doing alchemy. You're doing some uh, dark sorcery. I've asked this question to myself. I said, like, what is the opposite of alchemy? If alchemy is just making all of these energies, these elements into coherent flow of energies, that's sort of like a flux state, which is peaceful and blissful, I asked, like, what would be the opposite of that? And you would never, I mean, you would never guess what's the opposite of that. Is the opposite of that is what this new age is teaching everybody about rising the Kundalini energy. That is the opposite of that. That is ego trying to tame the dragon. And using that energy, to manifest things and stuff like that. This is what the most malevolent people are doing. It's always some sort of like lust based situations that are being created in order to get what they want, which is also some sort of vanity based things. That's how Matrix functions. It functions on lust. Lower drive. I made that video. Uh, the last video that I posted was about that. So, well, there you go. This is why anybody who's talking to me, and I can see that they're talking from the belief system, I tell them immediately, burn all their knowledge, burn it, and it will burn through the alchemical process. I had to burn it too. I fell for it as well for a brief moment. I thought that it's also about like rising Kundalini and you know trying to manifest through dark passion. But something very quickly came to me that's like, yep, that is definitely not the way. And I see sort of some people went that way, and I did not. Not that I did not experience it. I've experienced it, so this is why I can talk about it and not just say that like, uh, oh, that's just like these people are bad. No, they just gullible. They fell for it, and I fell for it too for but a very brief moment. But if I wouldn't have fell for it, I would not know for my personal through my personal experience that that is the case. But like I said, it is everything that's gained through that will be taken away. And then you're going to have to start from scratch and through point in a circle and attention awareness start doing the right way, which is pointing your attention where that discomfort is, not trying to evoke some sort of high state, not trying to but you are going into the feeling of discomfort and placing your attentions there because that's what it's asking. It's kind of really, it's like that discomfort inside of you. Like I said, it can come in 4 different forms: pain, pressure, poison, confusion. But it is asking your attention. It is asking your attention. It's saying that don't put attention somewhere else, um, which is what the outside world is trying to do. Is always taking your attention from somewhere else. Okay, and um, and once you begin, you realize that no matter what, this is always the case. You stop thinking about what happens, or like there's like enemies and somebody's like attacking you. There's no need to do that. Absolutely not, because it's just the process, and that's just the way it works. And um, you can give it a picture and say that, well, somebody's attacking you, but really, if you don't give it a picture, no one is attacking you. You are just going through the alchemical process. And in fact, if you're an alchemist, then every time that energy comes at you, you're thankful because there's another, you know, alchemical process to go through. And it doesn't matter where it come from. This person, this person. I used to try to discern and say like, where is it coming from? I gave up on that. I don't care. To me, there's only one ego, and no matter which person or if it if the emotional pain enters me, it is my responsibility. Uh, I have no hesitations or questions that all ego must be not a shred of it must be left. Everything to the base of the root must be alchemized. And I don't discriminate. You see what I'm trying to say? Like I don't discriminate anymore. It makes your life focused and peaceful, and you know that you work with the energy of those 4 elements, and you don't create any stories out of it. You only start creating stories out of it once you get to the coherent state, and out of that, if there's any kind of excitement that starts flowing through, or some ideas or inspiration, then sure, you go ahead and do that. But up to that point, my advice: don't create any stories. Don't get involved into this. You see. So I'll tell you what. I feel like I owe you like a little sort of like a drawing or a map. Uh, that is the most basic thing, and it's based on how the energy actually moves. In physics, you can observe that energy. I don't want to create any kind of model or a structure as a metaphor. I don't want to do that. I want to draw exactly of what is observed in physics, of how electromagnetic energy moves in and how every electromagnetic state can be equated to your emotional and feeling state. And so that's what I want. I feel like I owe you one of those uh, structures that can you can look at it, and anybody who understands at least the basics of the physics would look at it like, yep, that's how the energy moves. Yep, that's what happened. That's what the ego is. That's what the soul is, just by looking at electromagnetic fields of energy. Okay? And also states correspond to, in electromagneticity, you have different wavelengths, right? So they're different colors. And so you can see that there's a different wavelength. It's a spectrum. It's not kind of separate, but for the sake of example, you can uh, even them out. Again, I just described to you why this idea of raising your Kundalini from the root chakra to the top is like an evil person's game. Okay, anybody who fell for this trick was a fool, and it's okay to fall for it once, then realize, oh my God, I was a fool, and then do it right. Uh, But if you don't get the point, if you remain being like an energy vampire and engaging in this type of control of the reality through the ego, then your faith is going to be, not as good. You will deteriorate and die. This is what's going to happen to you, because if it's all there is to you is ego, then if ego dies, your body dies too. But it doesn't have to be this way. Uh, now, this is what happens. I mean, in the movies, what happens with the vampire when they're exposed to the light? They deteriorate and die. And so, no, forget about this. It doesn't work like that. It does work like that if you go from the ego perspective, and it is about levels and levels of achievement and all that nonsense. It doesn't work like that. It is just like everyday life, and there's a negative feeling that comes on, and you're sitting with it, or you don't even have to sit with it. At first, when it happens, it may be so intense that you kind of cannot be mobile. Then you can just go do your things, and you can still be attentive and aware of the feelings there, and placing your attention and awareness where it's supposed to be. You know, it becomes day-to-day thing, but you know what's going on. And in fact, it becomes more effective if there's motion in your life. In fact, it becomes more effective if there is motion in your life, because the motion in your soul must be corresponding with the motion in your physical world as well. The body has to move. The body has to move, the brain has to move, that type of thing has to happen to balance it all out. And if you are alchemizing energies, you do not act from the knowledge anymore. The knowledge for you is useful in the physical realm, but not how the reality works, not in relationships. Knowledge is not your primary function anymore. You see, the tree of knowledge is the root of all evil. The tree of life is the root of all good. And so, like I said, if you do this, do it. Okay? You won't need to listen to me or anybody else. You will see everything what it is for yourself. But I mean, don't get surprised to the scale of corruption in this world. But the good news is that once you know that it's there, you can focus on holistic way of life, and you will start meeting people who are also focusing on holistic way of life and co-create a good shit together without any corporations, governments, anybody. And don't you dare go through any kind of fucking intermediary that is a corporation. You know, if you're talented, do not contribute your talent into the Hollywood field. Don't do it. And even this, like YouTube videos, like I'm not really happy with posting on a YouTube video because it's not a decentralized corporation. But all of my videos are being posted on the odyssey.com, and that's where I primarily want to reside in terms of making my videos. But I do understand that there's sometimes needs to be like a bridge or a process that you have to have, you know, a gate, I suppose. But some people say that, you know, you have to read books and this is where you're going. No, absolutely not. I do not agree with this. I have to tell you that I had to destroy all my knowledge and discover everything by myself. And then this is the only way you can find out the truth. And it has everything. You would be surprised. I could write dozens of books about it just sitting down like this. I'm not doing this because I'm asking a question, and you know, if, the value of it. And even if I would write a book, I would not. I would if I write a book for the commercial reasons or whatever, then it would be entertainment, you know. But it would not be the actual scientific, hermetic principles. I would not publish that type of book. I would, you know, perhaps sell it to the people who are through the personal ways and channels. I mean, it's just like because throwing your pearls against the swine doesn't do anything. You can write an amazing book about it, but if people are not doing it, they're gonna take that book and then they're gonna go out and use this as a knowledge and to gain vanity and million followers or whatever and talk about it because it's you know, emotionally titillating and sensational or whatever, you know. Don't be that fool. That's not life. Anyway, so alchemy. I'm trying to think of anything that I've learned from the outside, from the book, from these principles that have ever useful. I did not come up with. I did not see the consciousness like that. Like even though I know when people talk about chakras, I know what they are, but they're not how they're displayed or how they're talked about. There's nothing. It's not. They talk about them as like the separate levels and stuff like that, but they are just the vortex fields of the toroidal energy. If you take a big toroidal energy, which is the, you know, the one complete reciprocating toroidal field, that would be infinity. And then you split that into two double inside, right like this, and every time you'll see the end of the bubble, because if you look at the bubble and if I take the top of the bubble and I just mark this line, you'll find the circle at the top, right? And you'll find a circle at the bottom and you'll find a circle at the middle, and you'll find that there are indeed 7 of these circles or these vortices, but they're not separate. They're not these separate energy centers, if you will. I don't know. I just don't see it that way. And I know that uh, you know it's not just me that does this. I know people who do it, and I know uh, uh, that they're doing it right because I can see their energy changes. I can see their attitudes change. I can see their life changing. I know that they're doing it because I can see the effects, and they come back to me, and they don't need me anymore. Like, they're telling me how it all works and what they've discovered, and then say like, "Yep, that's exactly what I see." Also, it's like, this is what I see. This is what I see. Also, it's universal knowledge that it's always there and it's accessible only through the state of consciousness that you have to earn through the alchemical process. So what else can I say? If somebody's going on that journey, the very basics is enough. It's just basically teaching somebody how to use the sword and the shield, and then to figure the things out on the way. To expand too much and to say, well, this is what's going, I could say that I found out that to be a certain type of states of consciousness, that they're different. For example, there might be 7 poison versions, there might be 7 pain versions, 7 types of pain, 7 types of pressure, 7 types of poison, and 7 types of confusions. There might be. I certainly experienced them in these different types, and they do correspond to, or they may correspond to, what you would call these vortices or these energy centers. And it may indicate a specific type of distortion. And so far, I can count 56 of them, logically looking. But, consciousness is surprising. Sometimes, upon deeper investigation, you see, like, oh, why? You realize, oh, I know why there's 56 and how that corresponds to. But perhaps there's not really 56, there's like more, but it kind of falls into 56 or whatever, right? There's this, the one thing that you can find in consciousness is self-symmetry. It is infinitely self-symmetrical. So this big bubble and these 2 bubbles is split, right? And then each little bubble as well is split into 2, and then each little split into, and this way, like, it has this self-similar holographic type of tendency. But universal structure. But I may create a little map, again, not from any kind of book or anything like that. I don't want to do this. I always want it to be my personal experience, and sort of like a bird's eye view when that kind of pops up, and like, oh. And I like symmetry. For example, I love the geometry of the flower of life, or the seed of life, the germ of life, the flower of life, and the fruit of life. I love that the geometry, it communicates a lot, and it suggests a lot as well. You cannot argue with geometry. It's not a book. It is something that works in, upon specific conditions, and you see, like, yep, that's just universal structure. And if you see that symmetry of universal structure in what you are seeing in your own consciousness, then there's this resonance there, and then you say, okay, that's a confirmation to me. Not because somebody said it, not because from any book. You found it in the observable universe yourself. And in demonology, again, I would not trust it. But they say that there are like 7 devils, and each there's you can split them into 4. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that you may find that there's 7 major challenges, and that there are um, 8 on each, and so you got 56 in total, and you can say that there's 56 types of demons or distortions that you ought to see. The demon is not the correct word, because the demon happens in when you create a belief system out of that distortion. But distortion is something else, not a demon. You can call it archon. And so there might be these 56 forms of these archons. And once you alchemize them, you change them into eons. And once they're eonic and no longer archonic, there's a permanent shift in consciousness. And that's it. And that's it. And now it's about doing it. Okay, guys? That's enough for today. I'll see you in the next one. And peace.